Hello, everyone. Welcome to Just Ask Julia, where we share tips, trends, and insights to help you transform your career and elevate your success. I am Julia Holian. I am hosting today. We are talking about what we're seeing in the job market. If you are watching this session live, we will have a Q&A session afterwards where you can ask us absolutely anything about your career, your job, what's working, what's not working. And if you are watching this as a recording, please click below so that you can get alerts to future sessions and sign up for them. These are called our Just Ask Julia sessions, and we'd love to have you join us. So let's go ahead and get started on what we're seeing in the job market. So today, it's a little rough. I'm not going to lie to you. In California, our unemployment has gone up pretty significantly for the last 2 years. You can see here that right now it's at 5.4%. I'll tell you, if you go onto IBIS World, which is another economic forum, they will tell you that California is at 6%. So I think it's probably somewhere in between those two. The 5.4 comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's been rough, and it's gotten a little higher. U.S. unemployment has also increased. Funny, I'm not hearing a lot of that coming out of Washington, but when you go look at all of the economic reports, they will tell you that the unemployment has increased nationwide in the last year. Now, here's an interesting stat that I found. Unemployment for the 20 to 24-year-olds, those, young professionals who maybe are coming straight out of college or didn't go to college, they're having kind of a tough go of it. They are at 7.6%, which is up 2% from just a couple of years ago. And where this really makes a difference is that this is our future. These are the people who we want to get into careers, and we want them to accelerate and learn and grow. They're our future managers. So there's a concern in a lot of companies that the pipeline for management is not as strong as it used to be. And not only is it that because of the unemployment for that age group, but also the onboarding that they're getting is not the same with some of the remote work because they don't, learn in the environment the way we all did for decades. And, coming out of COVID, they didn't have some of the skills that some of us had, when we were all coming out of maybe college or high school, getting into the workforce. So it's kind of a concern for the younger age group. And for anybody who's on here who's curious, you should be talking to my colleague Liz Helton, who is kind of manning the Zoom today. But she works specifically with college students and recent grads. So if any of those people have questions and concerns, reach out to us because Liz specifically focuses on that. Now, what is not in here, because I couldn't get an actual hard data point on it, is what's happening to Gen X. Now, I am an older Gen Xer. I hear about this from a lot of the people who are in my age group, but it's probably the roughest for those over 50. So Gen X is larger than just the 50-somethings, but if you're over 50, you're struggling. And I couldn't find any actual hard data except that I could find a lot of articles that said, yep, it's really hard if you're older. We're going to talk about things today, about how to stand out and what you need to do. But I just wanted to acknowledge that it's not just the young professionals, but it's the older professionals who are really struggling as well. And then lastly, kind of an interesting data point is that there is what we call underemployment, which is people who take jobs that are, quite frankly, not utilizing their skills. They are lesser paying jobs, but they are things to keep the lights on. They are things to help you stay busy. They are opportunities to maybe take on projects so that you keep learning, but they're not really what you want to ultimately do. And right now, 4.8 million people in the US are in these types of jobs. And I think that's an interesting data point too, that people are doing what they need to do. So what has slowed or stalled? I would start with job postings. March saw a record low in job postings. Globally, there was a drop of 16.4%. But if you look at March versus last September, we saw a huge dip in job postings. So I think a lot of that has to do with just where kind of the uncertainty of the economy and what's going to happen in the next few months. I think companies are just kind of buckling down and they're not necessarily putting out those jobs. As I say that, I want to let you know there are jobs out there. And Liz and I know about this because we are seeing it and hearing about it every single day. And I'll talk more about that. But just because there aren't job postings out there does not mean that the jobs don't exist. It means that companies are controlling their search process and making sure that they're finding people on their own, but they're not publishing that those jobs are out there. The other thing I would say is job growth. Job growth right now in March and April was the weakest that we've seen since last summer. In March, only 62,000 jobs were added in the US, and we were forecasted for almost twice that at 120,000. So that was a huge drop. Again, I think it goes back to what I just said. I think it has to do with the uncertainty about tariffs, about the stock market, if we're going to have a recession. All of those different factors are just having companies kind of, hold back a little bit on what they're, what type of hiring they're doing. Third is wages. Now, interestingly, 21 states have increased their minimum wage in the last year, which I'm glad to see. But across the board, wages are only growing by about 3.6%, which is below what we're seeing in inflation, and what we're seeing in just the price of everything. So, wages have kind of stalled. And that's obviously a concern for everybody because we want to, make sure that our money, goes far and that we're making the money that we need. And then lastly, and probably this is one of the big things to look at, is that there are fewer people who are changing jobs or retiring right now. For a lot of people who are those Gen Xers, maybe even some boomers, they've seen their 401ks and their retirement plans get kind of hit in the last few months. Now, I'm a believer because I've followed the stock market that, what goes down will come back up. But for a lot of people who are relying on that as their income immediately, they're not ready to start, tapping into that. So they're staying in their jobs. I also think that people are uncertain about what is going on economically, and people know that the job market's a little rough right now. So people aren't necessarily dipping their toe in that. They're like, I'm going to stay put. I'm going to do what I'm doing. I'm going to try to make the most out of the job that I have, and I'm not going to make a move. So that is affecting, obviously, job growth, job postings, and all of that. Let's move on from the doom and gloom, and let's talk about some other things that are happening and what you need to know to stand out in today's market. So let's start with what is in demand. And I'm going to walk through, some of these different skills and expertise and share with you that if you are looking at making a pivot, or you are looking at your career and saying, what is it that I'm doing or I have done in my job that is really in demand? This is the list that you need to look at. We're going to start with the topic of every single day, which is artificial intelligence. AI is the #1 conversation out there. I'm going to tell everybody here, if you are not taking an AI course, you need to. You need to learn about AI. It is the future. It's like sitting in 1995 when they started talking about the World Wide Web, because that's what we actually call the internet, the WWW, the World Wide Web. Back then, there was a lot of resistance. People didn't know what it was going to be, and look where we are today. You can say the same for AI, and you can look at AI and you can criticize it or not think that it's great, but it is the future. So I would go on Coursera, Udemy, edX, or even IBM has a free AI course that I've heard from many people is outstanding. Go take some AI classes, particularly if you are in between jobs. You're not working, this is your time to go be a student and learn, and AI is the place I would go to because you are going to be able to talk about that in networking, talk about it in interviewing, apply it to everything that you do, and it's really #1. But beyond that, there's still like the core things: machine learning, data analytics, digital transformation, security analytics, change management, governance, risk, and compliance. All of these technical things are in demand right now, especially as companies are looking at how do they protect themselves for the future. There are a lot of cybersecurity concerns out there, and there are a lot of changes that companies are looking to make. So if you've got some of these technical skills, you're definitely in demand. So what industries are on the rise? Well, we're going to start with the generative AI. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. That's kind of where everything's going. but also healthcare and health services. We're seeing a big increase in that, as well as education and digital education. So I know we've talked to a lot of people who are teachers who maybe want to make some kind of a change. This might be something that they want to look at, is how could they maybe take what they do and go into maybe digital education. Of course, we're starting to see the biggest resurgence since the pandemic in hospitality, retail, food service. That is not, by the way, just the server roles. That's management. That's everything that feeds into each of those industries. So those are always going to be around. I think when we saw the pandemic, they got hit in ways that we never, ever anticipated. They're definitely in demand right now. And then, of course, cybersecurity and that sustainability, solar, renewables, all of those are in demand. So if you're looking at making some kind of a pivot, or you're thinking that you want to go in a certain direction, think about the skills that you have that apply in here. Now, if you're in a job search, what your job search timeline is going to look like. By the way, we presented this a very similar workshop last year, April of 24. This has not changed really very much. Executives, your jobs are not posted. So you really need to be out there networking and talking to people, that face-to-face networking, getting in front of people, leveraging LinkedIn, leveraging different workshops or symposiums or events. Those are the things that you have to do if you're an executive, because your job search is a longer job search. And I work with a lot of executives, and I will be honest with you, a lot of them have been looking for a year plus. Again, a lot of executives are also in that Gen X age range, so all of these things kind of link in. But if you are in a job search, or you are anticipating that that might come about soon, and you're an executive, I want you to talk to your financial advisor. I want you to get your ducks in line, because it's very likely to be a longer haul. Now, when it comes to middle management and staff or early career, they're kind of in more of the same timeline. I would say middle management, 9 to 12 months. I've seen some people get jobs in 3 months, so don't think that that's not possible. But the average and what we're seeing out there is 9 to 12 months. If you are going to get laid off, I would try to negotiate the longest severance that you can, so that it'll carry you through here. For staff and early career, it's a 6 to 12 month. Now, I'm seeing some of that go back to like the 6 month if you have experience, but if you're coming straight out of college, sometimes that's a little bit harder, or you might find that you're one of those people who I would say are kind of underemployed. You might be taking something just to kind of have some work experience, but it's not what you want to do. And so your real job search is going to take a little longer. Now, if I go back actually, in middle management and staff and early career, you really need to work the channels for your job search. So let's look at what they are. Number one is going to be networking. 85% of all jobs come through networking. It's that face-to-face, it's the people, it's talking to others, it's making sure that people know what you do and what you're looking for and how they can help you. LinkedIn will tell you that over 70% of the people who get jobs through LinkedIn get them through their second and third degree connections, which typically is going to probably be the recruiter that is connected to your first degree connection. But when you're thinking of LinkedIn, you want to build up your first degree connections so that you're building up your second and third. Next is recruiters. Now, I am a former recruiter. I can say the pros and cons about recruiting all day long. I'll be honest, your chance of getting a job through a recruiter is slimmer because of the number of people that they talk to and the number of jobs that they're working on. You have about a 5% chance. That said, don't take recruiters out of the mix for you. A good recruiter that you connect with will help you. They will get you in touch with the right people. They will advocate for you. So you need to find recruiters who take the time to get to know you. And if recruiters reach out to you on, say, LinkedIn or wherever, please reply to every single one of them. Because when you reply to them, you're building that relationship. So don't dismiss them, even if the job doesn't look right. Definitely reach out. Next, target companies. I would put this almost on the same level as networking, which is why they're kind of at the top. So target companies, you want to have a list of companies that you are interested in working for, and you want to do a total deep dive on who they are. Don't just look at their website and their LinkedIn page and kind of start there. I want you to identify these companies. I want you to research every single thing about them. I want you to look at the people. I want you to find ways to make contacts with their internal team, engage on their social media, because that's a way to get visibility. I want you to become known to them. That's how people are getting jobs. The networking through the target companies, the combination of those two are really like the secret sauce of finding your next job. Now, job boards, we're not going to keep them off the list, but they've got about a 3% success rate, especially when you see that there are a lot fewer jobs that are being posted right now. So it's that networking, it's the target companies, it's working all of the other systems that are going to be most fruitful for you. What's the interview process look like? Just to kind of give you a heads up on what it looks like. I would say the interview process is typically like a 6 to 12 weeks, kind of on the average, which means that you could be, once you find that job, just when you first like apply or find out about it, that date to when you get an offer is probably going to be 2 to 3 months. For executives, it's longer. I saw a stat out of Korn Ferry that says that it's a 5.2 month average process, but that a lot of executives are looking at a process that could be up to 8 to 12 months. I think 4 to 6 is a little bit more common. How many conversations are you going to have? You're going to talk to 18 to 15 people for the most part in every job search. And that's even for the college age people. You might end up talking to easily 8 people. So you're going to see a lot. Some are going to be one-on-one conversations. Some are going to be groups or panels. A lot are going to be by video, but we are seeing more in person. You're likely, highly likely, to be asked to do a presentation or a project. Even if you're coming straight out of college, certainly if you are in management or if you are in a role where you are customer facing. Even we have just recently hired an intern and we asked her to just show us some of her work. We didn't want her to do extra work, but we wanted her to show us some of the things that she had worked on. I would liken that to still being a project. Assessments. A lot of companies are relying on assessments. Some are using Myers-Briggs or MBTI. They're using DISC. We use in Career Transformation Partners, we use the Clifton Strengths, but there are a lot of different assessments out there. My recommendation is if you've got time, go take some of those now so that you can already be speaking to them. Because if you talk to a company and they use DISC and you've already taken DISC, you can already speak to it. You may even be able to just share the results with them rather than having to take it again. But I would get ahead of the game on that. Last things on interview process, just make sure that you are sending out thank you notes because that's very important. I cannot tell you how many people are not sending out a thank you note and how that often will kick you out of as being a contender. And then control the follow-up. Before you leave each call, find out how you're going to follow up. Are you going to contact them? Are they going to contact you? And make sure that you are following through. Going to go back to just a little bit of the negative before we go get into the positive. I know there are frustrations out there, and so I don't want to overlook any of them. I know people are concerned that they sometimes get immediately rejected. I would say usually that is because the applicant tracking system, sometimes the human, but often the applicant tracking system didn't connect between your resume and and the job description. We can help with that. So if you've got questions around that, you need to reach out to us because we can help answer what's going on in that process and help you succeed. You may also be frustrated that you're not getting a response from your application. And I will tell you, it probably has nothing to do with you. Like 99% of the time, it's not about you, it's about the process of the company. They either have other candidates in play or they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And so they're changing course. Their executive team isn't on the same page. They're overwhelmed, they're overworked. So don't take that personally, but I know that it's a reality. Probably the biggest frustration I hear from people is that they get ghosted after an interview. I think I talked to 3 or 4 people last week who talked about that they just didn't hear anything. I have one person who said that they heard something like 4 months later. And again, I would say that is an indication of what's happening in their internal process. It's very rarely about you. They might have another candidate that they're feeling very strongly about, that they're trying to push forward. But very often when you don't hear anything, it's because that recruiter or your point of contact honestly does not know what to say. And then lastly, I know a lot of people get, frustrated because they get to the final stage of an interview process. They're kind of that number two candidate and they don't get the job offer. And the one thing I have to share with you is that statistically, you've already kind of won the lottery because you actually got into the interview process and you got through it. So learn from that. If you need help on interviewing, reach out to us. We will talk to you and work with you to figure out like what's happening in those final stages so that you can get over the hump and get to that offer. And I would say make sure that when you do this, if you're the number two, connect with everybody that you met and stay in touch. I have lots of stories of people who didn't get the initial job and then the company reached out a few months later because they either hired the wrong person or they've got another role and they actually liked you so much that they still want to, bring you in. So don't get discouraged. Just keep using that success story because it really is a success story to help, push you forward. So standing out. I know this is where a lot of people came here for today. Like, what do you need to do to stand out? And I'm going to start with you. You are your biggest advocate. And I'm going to speak specifically to some of the Gen Xers out there who have over the decades had success applying for jobs or talking to a couple of contacts and getting into interviews and are so frustrated right now because that just isn't the case. So you have to do some things differently. You have to start by advocating for yourself. And to do that, you have to be able to kind of answer these questions. What do you do best? What are you known for? How do you add value? What are your best skills, talents, and attributes? What do you want to learn? And what can you teach others? And the list that goes longer than that, but that's a really great starting point. You have to be able to answer these. And when you answer them, you've got to answer them with these 1, 2, and 3. You've got to make sure that this is clear on your resume, and your resume needs to be targeted for that next job. Believe it or not, only about 3 to 7% of resumes result in an interview. And usually that is because the resume has not been customized for the position. This does not mean that you need to have multiple resumes or that you have to completely overhaul your resume, but there are some very key core things that you should be doing to your resume to make sure that it gets past the applicant tracking system or the bot and gets in front of a human. And that when the human sees your resume, they're thrilled. They see what they need to see. I will also tell you one of the bigger shifts that we've seen in the market is that companies are hiring specialists, not generalists. So I see a lot of people who are in between jobs who want to say, I can do this or this or this or this. And they're like, I can do all of these things. But companies today are looking for people who have very specific skill sets. I want you to double down on who you are, what you do, why you do it, who you do it for. Answer the questions on the left and make sure that's clear on your resume. And then I want you to bring it to LinkedIn. I want you to be fully engaged in LinkedIn. I want your profile to be built out. One of my mantras these days is that in LinkedIn, more is more. Get more on there. It'll help you to get found by recruiters. It'll help LinkedIn see and believe that you are who you say you are, and they'll send you more things. You need to have the activity that backs that up. So you're posting, you're commenting, and you're commenting with like gusto and saying a lot of things. Like don't just say congratulations to somebody who got a job. Say congratulations. You are going to be amazing in this new role. You were my go-to person with this one thing when you and I worked together at X company. Your new colleagues are going to, learn so much from you. Gush about them in that comment. Any comment that you make sure that you put in substance and value, and make sure that you like things. Make sure that you follow companies and people. That helps with your weekly activity. You need to be growing your network, and LinkedIn is a great place to grow your network, but you've got to keep growing that because again, it's who you know. And it's not always that first degree connection. It's that who that person knows. Well, if you're always talking to just the same people, you're not growing your network. And so you've got to have questions to ask them when you're talking to your network. Ask them, who should I have on my radar? Who should I be talking to? What would you recommend that I read or look at or learn about? Make sure that they're helping you out. Try different routes, try different things and asking for different types of feedback. Now, additionally, for standing out, I'm going to tell you that you have to change things up, especially for my age group, the Gen Xers. The state of business is changing and we have to adapt to it. So the way the job market was before, the application process, it has changed. We have to change. AI is changing things. You have to embrace AI. It's no different than back in the 70s and 80s when people were looking at technology and saying, I don't trust computers. Yeah, now we trust computers. You might say you don't trust AI. You got to learn to trust AI. You got to do things differently in order to achieve the results that you want. So be a student, invest in leadership courses. You don't have to go get a degree or a certification every time, but you got to keep learning. Go take those classes in AI or technology or even finance, things that will always help you in your career. Like finance, even if you are not working in accounting or finance, you can be, the head of marketing, or you can be working in sales, and understanding finance is going to be valuable to you. Be the squeaky wheel. Reach out to people who you don't know, meaning find people on LinkedIn and reach out to them. Ask people who you should be contacting. You've got it. You got to kind of get out of the sort of like the normal common ways that you've always done things, and let people know who you are. Advocate for yourself. Ask for informational interviews, meaning you're going to go talk to somebody who works in a company to just learn about their company, or somebody who's made a pivot. Find people who've made the same pivot and reach out to them. If you want to get into a certain role, you've got to connect to people who are in that role and say, hey, I'm looking to make, a move into, your arena. And I'm trying to, talk to people to get a little bit more about what I need to do to learn and to grow and add to my resume. So be that squeaky wheel. And then don't ever forget to help others. When you help other people, they often will turn around and help you. And so sometimes you have to pay that forward. Make introductions to people or for people. Help them make those connections. And be gracious and gush about them. When you are with them, make sure that you let them know that you see them. When you are on LinkedIn and you see something that they're doing that's successful, or maybe they just put out a post, or maybe they got a new job, I want you to really gush about them and make sure that they feel good and they feel seen. And that way you are building that stronger relationship. So these 6 points are really the roadmap, I would say, for anybody who is looking to stand out in their career right now. You got to do things differently, but look at the positives of what you will get from that just a year or two from now. So hang in there if the job market's been a little rough for you. And if you know somebody else who's in the job market and you're doing fine, but they're looking for another job, please reach out to them, check in on them, see how they're doing, because they need that. Okay, if you are looking for where some of this information came from, here is a list of sources. I don't know that I got every single one of them because I have been diving into this for like 2 weeks, but this is a good starting point. And lastly, we are career transformation partners. We are here to help you transform your career, elevate your success. We started a career community at the beginning of this year, 2025. We would love to have you take a look at it and join us and help others advance their career by being a part of that community. And of course, we want you to connect with us on LinkedIn. So that is it for today's topic. If you are watching this live, we are going to start a Q&A session in just a moment. For those of you who are on replay, thank you for tuning in. You can click the link in the description to sign up for future Just Ask Julia sessions. We would love to have you here, share it with your friends, and we wish you all the best in your career.